Oh, Jesus Christ, don't you start. Anyway, yes, guys, we are back once again for the... I hate you so much. We are back here once again for the next review for this week's episode of Euphoria. This is season 2, episode 2. Not nearly as long of a title this time around. It's Out of Touch, and a lot to talk about in this episode. There was a lot going on here, a lot of storylines that we're dealing with. But of course, before we do get into all of that, I do have to introduce my my co-host here. You know, he was making fun of my intro, making fun of how I look like a helicopter in another video. Here he is, the man himself, Henzo Ewing.
Oh, hi.
Oh, don't you start. Don't you start. No.
You're out of touch.
You're out of touch. I'm out of time. I think that's the lyric. Yeah, there we go.
Studios.
But, yeah, obviously, I think, you know, we were both really excited for this episode with the way last week left off. Pretty explosive stuff. This week wasn't nearly as explosive, but a lot of shit that we're setting up here. And I think this is going to be a really crazy season with the way that this is going. I think we're in for some really crazy stuff going down. What did you think of this episode overall?
Yeah, it was like pretty wild episode. Like,
yeah,
lots of stuff happened, and like can't wait to see where it goes next.
Yeah, definitely. So with that, so you know, obviously most of this episode, while we did have stuff going on with Rue, the majority of it centers around everything going on with like Nate, Maddie, Cassie, and Cal, and like that whole drama that's going on, which like, oh my God, that is just going in some really crazy directions. But before we do get into that, I want to talk about what we had with Rue this week, which was kind of a bona fide subplot. Like Rue was kind of put on the back burner this week to focus more on those characters, understandably, because there's a lot going on there, but we do still have a lot going on with Rue. And I think what we're setting up for is going to be really tragic for this character, because we see her bonding closer with the character of Elliot. And the second that he arrives, you know, it's so awkward between her and Jules. I've seen a lot of people say that like, oh, Jules is jealous. Jules doesn't seem like the jealous type. Did you pick up on that? Because I didn't really feel like she was jealous. I felt more so she was just like kind of upset the fact that like, oh God, Rue is using again, and she doesn't want to be with her if she's an addict. And I feel like it's kind of obvious that she is. So that's how I saw. But what did you think overall?
Yeah, I think that he's like concerned about her relationship with Elliot, and yeah, she's made it very clear that she doesn't want to be with Rue if she's gonna be on drugs. So yeah,
I think that's very much what's going on. I didn't really get the sense that she was necessarily jealous. I think more so what it is, she just doesn't think that Elliot is a positive influence on Rue at all. And I think we very much do see that in this episode. Like, yeah, Rue isn't necessarily doing anything bad here. Yes, she's just kind of talking to Elliot and they're doing drugs, and that's kind of it. But the conversation that these two have in this episode, especially when he talks about her father and how he straight up says, like, I don't think that, you know, both of us are like good for each other and things like that. Like, I don't think this is going to end well. I really do think we're hinting at either Elliot ODing and possibly dying, or this is really going to put Rue in a downward spiral. Like, I don't see this going well at all when it comes to her character. You know, she's trying her best to, like, live these double lives right now. She wants to be the best possible girlfriend she can to Jules, but she's still, she's still indulging in these very harmful drugs, and you can see that it's really having a very visceral effect on her. And I only think it's going to get worse over time. So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. We do get to see a little bit of Algee, which was great. I love seeing Colman Domingo on this show. I was very excited to see him here. Seems like he's got a bit of a thing for Rue's mom, which is a very interesting direction. I didn't think they were going to go quite down that path, but I'm excited to see where this goes. I feel like, you know, he's always kind of been like the father to Rue that, you know, she never had, because obviously her father, you know, ended up passing away when she was very young. So I like that Algee is kind of stepping up in that way. And I feel like he's someone that is trying to get her to, you know, kind of kick the habit of the drugs, focus more on herself, be this positive influence in her life. But again, Rue is just so addicted at this point. And with someone like Elliot, who is a frequent drug user, you know, you can see it's not working out well for him. But I think Elliot also knows, like, this isn't good for him. Like, he shouldn't be hanging out with Rue. He's questioned by, I believe, his mom at the end of this episode. And she's like,
I think it's his cousin.
Yeah, his cousin, something like that. And she kind of questions him, like, you know, who is that you're hanging out with? And yeah, I mean, I just don't see this going well at all. I don't know if you've seen the theory, but a lot of people are thinking that Elliot is going to end up ODing and possibly dying. Do you think that's going to happen here?
Yeah, I heard like a rumor that all I've really heard is like something about Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm honestly think like someone is gonna die, but
yeah,
I don't know who is.
Yeah, I don't see this going well at all. I feel like what we're getting here with Elliot, it's again the start of Rue's like downward spiral. We're gonna get to a point this season, and I feel like this is the thing we're going to be able to pinpoint as like this is the thing that really put Rue down this path, is hanging out with Elliot and getting closer with him. I think this is a really bad idea all around. This friendship, it just is not a good idea for either of them, and I don't see it ending well at all. But with that, the only other thing we have to talk about before we get into all this stuff with Nate and his dad and whatnot, let's talk about Kat. I love what we're getting here with her character. Because we could tell last week, like, it was too good to be true between her and Ethan. Like, the two of them seemed really happy together, and we knew that that was not going to last. We knew there was no possible way that was going to last here, and it makes a lot of sense because, you know, Kat last season was, you know, doing all this crazy shit online, and the guys that she was with weren't nearly as passive as Ethan. They were a lot more dominant in that way. And you can see that I think in a way she kind of misses that, but she also has this like self-hate for herself. And I really felt that. I did. Like, I've definitely been in that situation where it's like, I am not good enough for this. I don't deserve this. And that's kind of like what Kat has convinced herself in that moment. And, you know, we get that great scene where she wants to make this like pros and cons list for Ethan, but she can't do it because she just doesn't feel that this is going to work out. She feels like it's going to, you know, be destroyed at some point. It's really sad to watch because I think Ethan's a generally like really good guy. He seems like a good boyfriend to Kat, but I think Kat in general, again, just she doesn't have that respect. She doesn't have that love for herself. And when it comes to relationships, like, that's what's important. You need to be happy about yourself before you can be happy about anyone else. And I think Kat just needs to find that. And I loved what they ended up doing with her. What do you think of Kat in this episode?
Yeah, like she was some like trouble with herself, and
yeah,
we'll see where it goes. But like that one scene though was some stuff, you know.
It was probably the best. It was probably the highlight of the episode, honestly. I really liked I like when this show gets really fucking weird like that. Because again, it does such a great job of representing like these insecurities that like teenagers have, these anxieties that teenagers have, and how like over exaggerated they are. Like, again, as ridiculous as it is, like, you know, there's like that out of context Euphoria account and like that video popped up on there and you watch it, you're like, what the hell is this? But in the context of the show, it makes a lot of sense because I mean, that would definitely happen. Like you're constantly telling yourself, no, I suck. I hate myself. But everyone's telling you, no, you need to love yourself. And it turns into like this Gregorian chant almost. I loved it. I love that scene. I thought it was, for me, the best scene of the entire episode. I loved how weird it got. And I'm very interested in seeing where this is really going to go because, you know, we see Kat, she's like lying to Maddie and others that her and Ethan have this like really passionate, like sexual relationship. And that's obviously not happening. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I mean, we'll have to see. I'm wondering if we're going to get an Ethan perspective. Like, I know you talked about it last week, but I feel like we're definitely going to get that because we don't really know a ton about him other than he just seems like a really good guy for Kat. So I'm not really sure if we're going to get more insight into Ethan overall, but I guess we'll have to see. But that's everything really going on in terms of everything that's not in terms of the main storyline this episode, which, my God, where do we even begin? I guess we'll talk about the, you know, sort of vignette we get, but this was probably one of the more artsier ones we've gotten because we get this straight up, like, mind trip when it comes to Nate in this episode where he's fantasizing about Cassie and to the point where he's imagining that he was with Cassie instead of Maddie in sophomore year. He was always with Cassie. They always had this better relationship. He likes Cassie more because she's nicer. She's not as assertive as Maddie and things like that. Do you think this changes anything if he was with Cassie instead of Maddie?
I don't know because like there's definitely like some stuff we saw, but that was just fantasy and
I feel like what they did. Oh, what were we gonna say?
No, nothing.
Okay. I feel like what they did a really good job with there was, again, diving deeper into like Nate's insecurities and the fact that like he's blaming, other things in his life, not really focusing on what really is causing all the toxicity. And it's 100% his father. I mean, look at the way that Cal acts in this episode. Look at what Cal does here. Like you can understand why Nate represents, all of those toxic traits in this show, just because of the way that Cal like immediately springs into action, realizes, when his son is attacked, wants to find the attacker. You don't really know what's going to end up happening there, but I really like the way they presented this, where like, you can tell that Nate has these feelings for Cassie, but he also still likes Maddie. He also still has these feelings for Jules. So there's so much, like, you can tell he's so indecisive over what he wants. And I think that's what makes Nate such a compelling character in that way. Again, as dickish as he can be, as much of an asshole as he can be, as much of a horrible human being he's been in some of the episodes, I think what the show does a really great job with is diving deeper into what makes him this way. And we really do see in this episode, like, what really does make him this way. And it's because he has all of these conflicting feelings and, he's got this father that has these really toxic traits to him that nobody knows about. And it's becoming too much. You can tell it's becoming too much for him. And, we focus a lot on Cassie as well. And I really like what they're doing with Cassie this season. I said it last week, and I really like the idea that she's going down this very, like, she's in a straight up depression at this point because of her relationship with McKay falling out and the abortion and things like that. It's had a very clear effect on her to the point where in the summer she's not cleaning. She's very like, she's very antisocial in that way. And Maddie like calls her out on it because Cassie's talking about how like she wants to be single. She doesn't want to have sex and all things like that. And Maddie doesn't buy a single second of it. And you can see, Cassie is very clearly using her relationship with Nate as this distraction of sorts. She wants to distract from the problem because this is like the one thing that's like helped her out. This is what Cassie always does. She clings to guys. She tries to get that happiness from guys. And I think it's what Maddie says. Like, she loves love in that way, but she also doesn't love herself. Similar to how Kat has that same self-hate. I think Cassie also has that because she's kind of convinced herself that like this is as good as it's going to get for her. And you really do see that. And I think that's what really is going on with Cassie this season, is that she's constantly rebelling because she feels like this is as good as it's going to get. And Sydney Sweeney is really just doing some amazing work this season overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. All around, just really, really great stuff when it comes to Cassie. I mean, the scene with her and Nate where he is like ready to break up with her, and she's like not really willing to do that, straight up like runs away from him, and then he finds her and they end up hooking up. I mean, this is not ending anytime soon. But what really complicates things, Henry, is a couple things. One, you got Maddie here, who I forgot that Maddie has that tape. That's something that they mention a lot in this episode, is that tape is very much still out there, and Maddie very much still has it. And I'm beginning to think that tape is getting leaked this season. I think what's going to happen is Maddie's going to find out, because she clearly still has feelings for Nate. She literally talks to Jules about how she wants to potentially like get back together with Nate and things like that. And Jules tells her no, that's not a good idea. I think what's going to happen is Maddie's going to find out, what happened between Cassie and Nate, and the way, and she's going to, release that as like a collateral of sorts, like as collateral, like you're not going to do this again and things like that. And it's going to ruin a lot of people's lives. But I think that is what they are setting up here. And that's really going to complicate things in a big way, because, Maddie's trying to gain independence for herself. It very much seems like she wants to get away from her family. She wants to get a job. She wants to be her own woman in that way. But again, she's so hung up on Nate in that way, because she hasn't really been able to fully get over him. And I think, seeing how she reacts with those other characters, that wronged her. I can't imagine what's going to happen to Cassie. Like I definitely can understand why Cassie is so fearful of Maddie right now, considering how she reacted in that one scene with like the locker and whatnot. I'm not, I definitely feel like this is not going to end well at all.
Yeah. And also, not to mention that like Rue saw Cassie get into Nate's car,
which I saw a review of that. I didn't even notice that at first, and then I heard about that. I was like, oh shit, like that's really really good writing, because that's really going to come around in a big way. And especially, it's going to be interesting to see how Rue really is tied into everything. She kind of is like caught up in the middle of all of this right now, because right now, like, this involves her, but not as much as it involves other characters. And it's going to be interesting to see how Rue really does end up getting involved, because slowly
she does know about like Rue and she knows about Jules and Cal.
Yeah, she knows about that, and you can see that's definitely going to affect her in a big way. But we'll have to see, what really ends up going down there. But of course, the other big moments in this episode is, again, Cassie is being very rebellious and does a really terrible thing. Something that she really should not have done.
Yeah.
Cal is like very adamant about who ended up attacking Nate and things like that. And we see Lexi gives a very different answer. Lexi immediately is trying to like just push away from it, not really mention what's going on, because obviously Lexi has these feelings for Fesco. Lexi's also one of the only like, sane people in this show at this point. So like, obviously she is trying to like diffuse this as much as possible. Cassie straight up says Fesco's name and like straight up incriminates him. And I did not know what was going to happen in that scene when Cal walked into that store. I didn't know what he was going to do at that moment. But I was like, oh my God, Cassie. Like you can understand why Lexi was so furious at Cassie in that moment. Because even though, yes, Fesco did that, like, she doesn't realize how dangerous Cal really is. She doesn't realize what she's really getting herself involved with. And this is definitely going to have like very long-lasting ramifications for a lot of these characters. But I think the thing that interests me the most, Henry, is really the rift between Lexi and Cassie. We kind of dived into it in season 1 a bit with the idea that like Lexi isn't as, she's not as loved as Cassie. She is kind of neglected in that way. She's a lot more passive. But we're starting to see her really become her own person. She's starting to step up a bit. She doesn't want to be silent anymore. She found out that Rue was ODing and she just kind of sat back. She realized that Cassie was kind of going through some shit and she kind of sat back, and she doesn't want to sit back anymore. She can see what this is doing. I really feel like Lexi is going to get herself involved, and I don't know what's going to happen to her, but I really like that. One, Lexi has a lot more to do. Two, the rift that it's creating between Cassie and Lexi, because we knew that they kind of fell out last week, but we didn't really know we still don't really know what that was fully about, but we can start to understand that like Lexi at this point is just not dealing with Cassie shit anymore. And I don't think it's going to, I'm very interested in seeing how that whole thing is going to play out.
Yeah, definitely. Like, she's becoming her own person.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the stuff with her and Fesco is, again, just so great. I love those two together. But, I've heard people say this, and I will also agree. Like, Fesco is one of those characters where he's such a nice guy, but he's making, like, the worst possible decisions. Like, when it comes to him, obviously – we wanted him to beat up Nate. Obviously, we wanted him to give Nate we wanted him to mess up Nate in the way that he definitely did deserve, that beating that he definitely did deserve. But he didn't fully think through with it, and he doesn't realize, how dangerous Cal is. He doesn't realize, what's really going to go on there. And then we got to talk about Faye, who I was not expecting to see her again. I wasn't. I thought she was going to be like a one-off. We were going to see her last week. No, she comes back here. Seems like she straight up killed someone, kicked out of like the hotel because of it. And now Faye is literally living with Fesco. And you can see Ashtray is like not happy about this at all. What's going to come of this, Henry?
I have no idea. Like, when that just happened, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was not expecting to see her again. I thought, like, for sure she'd be, like, a one-off character, but...
Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
And again, like, Fesco's very, like, nice side is what I think is going to hurt him here, because, again, he's still looking after her and being like, she doesn't have a home, she has nowhere else to go, I got to look after her, and that's great, but he doesn't realize that she probably killed someone. So, like, again, I don't think this is going to go well at all. I said last week that, like, at the end of season 1, I predicted that Fesco's going to die. I kind of still maintain that. I'm not going to lie. I'm still maintaining that Fesco, I don't know if he's going to make it out of this season just because of the decisions that he's making, just because of, what he's got himself involved in. I don't know if Fesco is going to survive this season. I really don't.
Yeah, I feel like maybe he'll be in like a coma or something. And like, if he lives, like, he'll like get the fuck out of the drug business.
Yeah, I feel like definitely something big's going to happen with Fesco this season, whether it's him dying, someone close to him dying. I feel like something drastic is going to happen with him by the end, and it's really going to change that character around in a big way. And I'm not entirely sure which way it's going to go, but I really do like the way they're setting all of that up. And then, like I said, to go back to the ending of it all, when it comes to Cal and Nate, when Nate is confronting Cal and brings up the tape, and Cal's like, wait, what tape are you talking about? You have the tape? You have it? And it just kind of ends there. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, is he going to find out that Maddie has it? I think she is going to...
on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it was a really great way to wrap things up as well, because you can see that he immediately, like when Nate talks about that tape, he's so like frightened about it. And the one thing that's really interesting is that next week it seems like we're going to find out more about Cal, and that's really cool. I didn't think we were going to get a Cal-centric episode, but I'm excited to see more of. I'm also terrified to see, what really made him into the monster that he really is and caused him to do all of these, very just inhumane acts. But we'll have to see what really goes down with Cal, and what really like kind of made him this way. I guess again. I think
Cal's dad did some shit.
Yeah, I think it definitely is like a generational thing, like similar to how Nate's is, imbues a lot of those toxic traits that Cal has. I think that carries over from Cal's childhood as well. So I think that's going to be really interesting to overall watch play out. That's really everything that went down. I don't think we left anything out. Was there anything else that happened that we didn't discuss? I think we pretty much covered everything. But yeah, a lot of crazy stuff going on in terms of the, in terms of the show this week. And again, I mean, Sam Levinson is just doing such a great job with directing the show. It really just feels like a lot of these characters are hitting that breaking point. Some of them are starting to get a bit better. Like Maddie, for example, seems like she's on a path where she's trying to be independent, but again, still feels pulled back to Nate. And knowing what's going on with Cassie, especially, it's going to get messy. It's definitely going to get messy. And I think we're on the cusp of something insane going down. I don't know when exactly it's going to happen, but especially Rue knowing about Cassie going into, Nate's truck and things like that. I mean, there's a lot that's happening here, and I'm not entirely sure again how that's all going to go.
Up.
Yeah, definitely. And Levinson is just doing such a great job, I think, of ratcheting up that tension overall, really just giving the season a lot more urgency, which is really great to see. Even storylines like Kat, who's not really connected to this right now, there's still something going on there with her and Ethan. And I think he's setting that up very well. So I think overall, in terms of the directing, just really, really strong from him. I feel like, last season the directing was very strong, but it very much did feel like a build up to something. This season feels even more like a build up to something, but in terms of just, it has a bit more urgency. It has a bit more intensity to it. And I think in general, he's just doing a really great job with directing the show this season. The writing as well is just so consistent in the show. I think, the thing I really do love about the show is that, yeah, we have a lot of crazy shit going down, but it never feels like it's just happening because we just want to do something crazy. We just want to push the limits. Like everything has a purpose here. We're exploring these characters' deep desires. We're exploring their deepest insecurities. And I think that's something the show has always tapped into very well. And I think this season we're seeing them push even further into those toxic traits, further into those insecurities, and how that really is affecting these characters overall. I think the show is doing a really strong job of that. So I think overall Levinson's writing is just really great with this show. Is there anything you want to say in terms of the writing and directing in this episode?
Yeah, the good shit.
Yes,
definitely a lot going on, and it's makes me want more.
Yeah. Also, love the A24 shirt. I just noticed that. We do love the A24 shirt. Getting into, cinematography. I mean, amazing visuals just all around, like the hallucination stuff with Nate's in the beginning, I thought was just absolutely incredible to watch. And the fact that all of this is on film, I mean, again, it adds this layer to the show in terms of the cinematography and things like that. I love, of course, the sequence with Kat. I think for me, that was the highlight of the entire episode. I really like what they were able to do with that. So I think in general, that was definitely one of the best parts of this episode overall. One thing I do want to talk about, Labyrinth score. I always talk about it. I did not realize the song in the end credits was his song. I looked it up on Apple Music. I'm like, where is this song? Only to realize, oh, it's an original song. And I love that. I love that Labyrinth is always composing his own stuff. I think that his score is honestly kind of overlooked. Like, I don't hear a lot of people talk about it, but he always kills it. And I really liked that song at the end. Just really, again, added to the momentum of that cliffhanger very well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, overall, I think this was a very strong episode. I really loved what was going down in terms of, again, I think they're just ratcheting up all of the intensity very well when it comes to how all these characters are getting involved in this situation. Even characters, like I said, that aren't fully involved, it still feels like they are very much being pushed to their breaking points in that way. And so I'm very excited to see how all of this does go down. You know, I think even, with Rue and with Rue and Elliot, I think that's going to go in a really dark direction as well. I feel like those two are really bad for each other. They cannot coexist, and they are, and I just don't think that's going to end up well at all. I think when it comes to the whole dynamic with Nate and Maddie and Cassie, something really crazy is going to happen there, and we'll just have to see. And again, even characters like Kat, who aren't fully connected, I think the show is still doing a really good job of exploring, what's really going on with her. And I think overall, this was just another really strong episode. I think this is just a really, really, setting up a really
brewing at East Highland.
Yes, definitely. I think it's setting up a really intense season overall. So I am going to give this week's episode of Euphoria, Season 2, Episode 2, Out of Touch, an A. Oh, were you going to say anything?
No.
All right. Other than that, that's it for our review of this week's episode. Before we do wrap things up, though, Henry, I am going to give you a chance to, plug the things that you want to plug. That's always a lot of fun. So we're just going to go ahead and hover over you.
You know where to find me.
Yeah, if I can find where the hell is it? Oh, there you are.
Where the hell is my
there you go.
Yes, that's my Twitter. Yes,
find him over there. always a lot of fun stuff going on over there. But anyways, guys, for our review of this week's episode of Euphoria, as always, comment down below, let us know what you guys thought of this week's episode. Would love to hear your thoughts on all of that. We'll see you guys in our next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Moving on is a chance to take any time you try to stay together.
And I didn't forget the outro this time.